Welcome back to the Recap Show. On today's episode, we will be talking about why women's sports matters. We'll be talking about the NWSL Playoffs, and we'll be joined by special guest, San Diego Wave attacker, Mexican international, María Sanchez. If you love what we're doing here on the Recap Show, please like, rate, and subscribe to YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Now, let's get into the daily discussion.
Welcome back to TRS Reimaginers. We missed you. This week is a tough one. It has been a heavy and dark period for our community of queers and women and minority groups, brown and black people, the people that we love, that are in our community and that are a part of us, and how we see this country and how we see the world around us. I think everyone feels really disheartened, and I know that includes Tobin and myself in a lot of ways. And what we are here to tell you today is that now more than ever, we need women's sports. There is a reason that we do this show. There is a reason that we do the job that we do. And we believe that it is a way to bring together the community and to celebrate and to continue to fight in ways that bring joy and connectivity. And we're really proud of the work that we do alongside all of you. And we're going to continue to do that work. And we're going to continue to love women's soccer. So Tobin, why don't you tell us why you love women's sports?
Well, I think that it is really difficult, and at the same time, there's so much that we can cheer for within this community, within sports. I think that's why we love it, is that there's an inherent goodness, there's inherent hope, there's inherent opportunity, there's inherent inclusion, all in women's sports when you cheer for it. And it is truly a vehicle that changes the world. And we're talking about globally. And, I think for us in this country, when we think about women's sports, we do think of progress. We do think of equity. And a lot of those things we feel like, within the last week has felt like it's almost trying to be pulled back. And there's now there's never been a more important time to cheer for women's sports. And I'm excited to continue to do that on this show. We cheer for the sports, we cheer for the change making. And I'm ready to go. LFG, come on.
And in a time where it feels like so many of our rights are in jeopardy, it is an amazing thing to watch women and queer people and black people and all of us on a world stage being strong and proud and fighting for something really good. So in a time where it feels like we've all been a little bit shaken and we don't know what the future looks like for us, I think it's something really beautiful to be able to come together and celebrate and cheer in this way. And when we play, we are symbolizing the progress and the future. And that's why I think, especially for us in playing soccer and in starting this business, it's been so meaningful to link and find the intersection between sports and culture and progress and, the fight and the love that we all have to make the world a better place. Sports moves the needle. It is the reminder that we are more similar than we are dissimilar, that we can all get behind teams and players. We can see ourselves in these people, and we have the license to dream when we play sports and when we watch sports.
Yeah, and I think from just like a personal story, sports has given me the opportunity to share rooms with folks that I would have never thought I would ever be sitting next to. Different backgrounds, different cultures, different ages. And that I sat and I fought next to these people and I got to learn their stories. I got to learn about them. I played, all over the world. I got to experience all different struggles, fights, opportunities, learnings. And it changed me. It changed my view on, myself, my community, and recognizing that it's like this world isn't just my version of it. This world is a beautiful blend of versions of life. And I think that's what I see when I see sports, and particularly in women's sports, I see that being used for so much more good than just winning a football game.
Yeah, and I think we talk about this a lot, actually. Like, where would we be if we hadn't had that? exposure. And so I think in a way we have an immense amount of gratitude for the stories that we've been exposed to and the people that we got to sit side by side with, because they're great soccer players, not because they shared our background, our socioeconomic status, but because they shared a dream. And then all of a sudden you have a whole slew of people that you never would have crossed paths with. And that exposure is super, super healing for society.
Yep. And we'll continue having those conversations. We'll continue bringing in those folks so that everybody can get to know the folks that we shared locker rooms with, the future of this sports, the future of women's sports in this world. And we'll continue to celebrate them. And what better time right now to actually have the guests that we're going to have on our show, but also be able to talk about what I think is the most exciting time of the year. 'Tis the season for the NWSL playoffs.
It sure is.
Let's ring it in.
Bring it in.
Yeah, that's what they say. Like when you ring in the new year.
When it's the new year.
I put all of the holidays together because
I was really with you until you said let's ring it in, and then I was just
it's kind of like
to understand.
Let's kick it off.
Okay,
let's kick off the NWSL playoffs.
Okay, that's on the TRS? Opposite, but I'm going to let it go and let's tell everybody what's going on with the NWSL playoffs.
Okay, that was more clear.
You start.
All right, Reimaginers, we just experienced the quarterfinals, which were, I think to no surprise, all of the top seeds went through. Yep.
True.
I know.
We had a couple moments where
it's
I thought
weird
it could go
to think
the other
about
way.
Because with the Portland game, you're like, no.
Yeah, that's so true.
Portland lost. And then you have to remind yourself, well, they were the lesser seed. Last place. It's like once you get to the playoffs, it's like the lowest seed, you're in last place.
Yeah, exactly.
No, there's actually however many teams that aren't even here, but we'll just pretend. Yeah, you're the last place playoff team.
Yes,
but the last place playoff team can also win a championship.
Like last
Isn't
year.
this a beautiful
dream
playoff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're at the quarterfinals, and what should we expect in the semifinals? Who we got?
Okay, so I do believe that was the first 8-team quarterfinals in the NWSL history, which is hilarious.
I know. Normally, we just have a semifinal and a final, so this kind of feels like
special,
and also now we're in the playoffs.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Okay, so we have 4 teams remaining. Orlando plays Kansas City, and Washington plays Gotham.
Yep. And I think these are the strongest teams that are left. But I want to give a special mention to Bay FC. Come on. Snaps
Good
for
season.
An expansion team in the playoffs, giving a heck of a game. A heck of a game. What was it? What did I say? It was Audi Field turned into Rowdy Field when Bay FC came. And really, I was thoroughly impressed. And I want to give special snaps to Sister D, Abby Dahlkamper, who was a mid-season trade, which I will say was probably the best pickup in the mid-season that completely changed the trajectory of that team. And just watching actually that backline in particular was a sight to behold, A lot of vets on that back line that really held it down against a really strong Washington Spirit team. Really, really great. Brava. Also, I now know we're in football mode because Tobin's gone totally off script. So
great. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. If you have never watched the NWSL and you're like, hey, this is the moment for women's sports, well, welcome. And we're going to give you our takes and everything that you need to know to watch these games and be able to join them. If you are a day one, we love ya. These are our hot takes. So I'm going to ask you some questions. And really, for both of you, both groups, if you just want to sound really smart talking sports and impress people, just listen up and then just say what Tobin says. That's what Glennon said she does at the dinner table. Glennon does it. You can do it. We're all going to just listen and learn. Okay. So first question for you, Tobin.
Yes.
Who would you most want to spend your money to watch play? So we're only going to talk about players that are still in the playoffs.
Yep.
Which player would you want to spend your money and you think they'd be the most entertaining?
Yeah, I mean, sports, we have to remember this. Sports is an entertainment business. I watch football for the entertaining players. That's what I do. I want to see something I've never seen before. I want to get off my seat. I want to cheer. And for me, that player for the whole season has been Barbara Banda. Barbara. BB.
BB?
My BB. Who has been absolutely phenomenal. And I think there are a lot of people that kind of at the same time that they say Barbara Banda, they say Temwa Chwenga. And I think that for me, I think the players are actually very different players. I see I think when people talk about them in the same breath, they say like super athletic, super fast.
Prolific scorers.
I think they're the top 2 leading scorers in the NWSL Golden Boot race. But for me, Barbara Banda is a more complete footballer. And what I mean by that is that even when she's not scoring, she is contributing to the attack of her team. I actually think Chwenga on the other side, she contributes a lot of work like defensively, and they do Kansas City press like a lot higher with their forwards. So like Chwenga actually does a lot more like off the ball as well. But for me, Barbara Banda helps the whole attack of Orlando and provides, in my opinion, a more complete picture of attacking footballer.
So probably the player most in form heading into the semifinal?
I mean, 2 goals coming into the semifinal
and
match.
Actually, like quintessential goals. Like, when a player scores in the way that they were meant to score.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's phenomenal watching the different ways that these attackers are scoring. I think it's a sight we've never seen in the NWSL. And Barbara Banda's 2 goals, and it has to like put her in like really exciting like form going into the semifinals.
And something we also always talk about is like the intersection between a top player and a top team, right? So sometimes you have top players and they're playing on teams that aren't having success. And so you're sort of like, well, what's their impact?
Yep.
How valuable is a player if they're just really good or scoring a bunch of goals but not winning?
Yeah.
But obviously Orlando has been the story of the entire season. Went on an incredible unbeaten streak. Wow. They won the league. They've already won titles. Orlando has historically been at the bottom of the table every year. So it's kind of a big change, and Barbara Banda has led that.
Yeah, and I think they hit like what I would say a little bit of a slump, which was like only like a couple games where people were like, oh my gosh, Orlando, they lost a game. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, but right they actually did that, like not right at the end, meaning like they've come in here now and they're looking the part again.
Yep.
So that's encouraging for them.
Okay. Next question is, who would you least want to go 1v1 against?
So, I mean, we've got incredible attackers in this league. And actually, we have incredible wingers in this league that were 1v1 matchups are exciting. We have a type of league that flourishes in these moments. And usually you give the hats off to the attackers. Like, an attacker can go 1v1 5 times, and if they get past their defender 1 time, they're the hero.
And for a defender, if they get
I mean, like the odds are in your favor,
Sure.
but for a defender, like everybody knows in this league, the hardest outside back to go against in this league is Casey Kruger. There's no question about it. She'll match up on either side of the field, and she is down for whatever matchup. And she's the only player that I know consistently can shut down the best wingers in this league. But she is an outside back, and we're looking at a Banda and even a Chwenga, the way that she's scoring when she's coming inside to score most of her goals. Like these are players, the attacking players, the Golden Boot players, they play down the wing. But when I look at like a Trinity Rodman, who affects a lot of attack in her league, both on the goal scoring and on the assisting, what I see is matchups. And there is one matchup that I would be a little bit hesitant to go against. Well, one, thank goodness she has Casey Kruger on her team because she doesn't have to go against Casey Kruger. But there is another matchup that she won't face in the semifinal, but she could potentially face in the final, and that's Kansas City's Wheeler. I mean, it's like Merritt Mathias incarnated or reincarnated. Incarnated? I don't know. Reincarnated Merritt Mathias, where this girl is like saucy. She's in your face. She's biting at your ankles. She's athletic enough to match up. Like, this is like, a player that is going to like kind of enjoy making your life miserable. And when I look at some of the wingers that, like to have their days every single day, like week in and week out, their matchups, this is one player that I was like, when I was watching her against Caroline, and to be fair, Caroline isn't back to her best, but when I was watching that matchup and also the double teaming that they were getting into, I was thinking to myself, oh, like that's one that I mean, there's a lot of NWSL defenders like this, but she's got that extra eek.
Yeah, there's always certain defenders that are known in the league for just making your life miserable. And that's why I was like, I can also play 9. You can just slide me center. Thank you. Okay, a couple more. Up and coming star. Who to watch in the semifinal? Youngster.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm obsessed with Claire Hudden, on Kansas City. She's she can pretty much play anywhere, in the central midfield position. I love her stature. I love her vision. I always say there's these players that kind of play the game inside the game that I think she does. The first time she really stood out to me was actually at the U20 World Cup when I said, wow, who is this player that is completely settled? She lives there. There's also these players that live the game at their own speed. And it's not because they can't keep up with the game. It's because they're in complete control. And for such a young player to be able to show me poise, within 2 seconds of me watching her, I said, that's a player that will be on the national team, the senior national team, and she'll be on the senior national team for a very long time. And I think she'll disrupt that midfield actually quite quickly. And
that's a strong statement.
I'm very excited to see her continue to grow. And I hope Kansas City is a place that she can do so.
I think you said 2027 starting midfielder for
I did.
The U.S. Women's National Team. Let's see, folks.
I did.
Let's see if TRS is still going strong and we can call her out one way or another. Okay, last question. This was your spicy question of the day. Your least favorite remaining team.
Ooh. All right, folks. It's a really hard toss-up, honestly, between Gotham and Kansas City. I mean, I don't want to say this, but I do say this in private. Gotham is the least super team. They have really talented players, but you just watch them play and I'll be inspired by an individual brilliance of an Esther goal. But as a team, I'm kind of meh. Okay,
what a treat for all of you. We should have wrapped it up. And instead, we just let Tobin go on a rant. And
Who gave me the mic?
I'm a little sweaty on the brow. It's fine. But I think that was a one and done. Tobin's hot takes have come and gone. Everyone save this, record it, because it's never happening again. And that's your daily discussion. Each week, Tobin and I have the opportunity to speak to some of the game's best players, our friends, coaches, and business people. Last week, we spoke to Meg Linehan, and we had a great conversation about the business of women's sports and journalism. This week, Tobin, who do we have?
We have María Sanchez, 28-year-old attacker for the San Diego Wave, Mexican international with a silky left foot who made huge headlines when she signed one of the biggest contracts in the NWSL.
Let's bring her in.
Let's do it. Welcome, María Sanchez.
Yay! Welcome to the show.
Thank you. So, you didn't see this part, but we introed you in a really great way. But I don't know if you saw this, but I spotlit you on one of your games.
Okay, pause. Spotlit? Is that the past tense of spotlight?
Did you legitimately pause?
Wait, that's so funny.
I spotlighted.
Thank you. Go ahead. Continue.
Is that really it? Okay, I spotlighted you on one of our previous episodes, and I said you are a player with a silky left foot.
Thank you. That's good to hear from you.
True or false? Do you have a silky left foot?
Well, what does silky mean? How would you define that?
Silky mean? How would you describe silky?
I would never say silky.
Silky smooth, Pantene Pro V, for skills in soccer. You know?
Thanks.
Effortless.
I feel like I'm very left-footed though. So the right one doesn't work, but I'll take it with the left.
Left.
So I have so much respect for players that are one-footed, because in our country it's you're told immediately when you hit the ball with your right foot, it's you have to do your left foot too. And there's something so beautiful to me about the best one-footed player, and you can use your other foot, so let's be real. But I think that Marta was such a great example of just a one-footed player, in the way that you can be so gifted on one side of your body that even though everybody knows that you're going to be using only one of your feet most of the time, like you're still unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is very rare to see. I think I agree with you. It's like in the US, it is like rare to see a one-footed player. But I also feel like us left-footed are like left-footed. Like, and I think Marta's a great example that it was like she'll use the outside of her left. She'll like in any way she will use her left, but it's so good. Or like people are like force her right, and it's like she'll still go left and beat you. Like so,
and that's because in the US we're like 0-footed.
And end of the day, like 2-footed equals 0-footed. Let's just focus on what we're good at.
What? Running and heading. Still not me.
I think it's the joy of like football is that like there's artistry to it and there's balance and harmony. Like we actually refer to balance and harmony a lot in a lot of ways on this show. And I think that, you know, when you're just trying to be this like version of an athlete that feels very industrial, you know, like where you're just kind of put through this machine of checking all the boxes. Can you use your left foot? Can you use your right foot? Can you use your head? And then they're like, okay, now you can move on to the next level of soccer. Like you don't come from that background. And I think that's one of the most exciting things that when we were talking about having you on as a guest, I'm like, I'm so excited to hear how Maria was brought up in football to get to this same place that we're all at, because your story is so much different than ours.
Yeah. I think that makes me like unique, I guess, and especially in like NWSL, it's so difficult. Like, but yeah, growing up, I mean, I didn't play club soccer, which in the US is like I think everybody pretty much.
Every like youth soccer parent just like went,
yeah.
What did you do?
I played with boys. So I was born and raised in Idaho, a town of 4,500 people.
Wow, what is that like?
Insane. Like compared to my life now, it's like insane. I go back home and I'm like, this is crazy. Like how did I come out of here? But I'm like, wow. But yeah, I mean, I think for me it was like the joy of playing soccer and like the happiness that it brought me. And like in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna be a professional soccer player. I'm gonna play for Mexico. I want to do so much. And I knew, like, I looked at, you know, the process of becoming a professional soccer player in the US, and everybody was like, club soccer, like you're gonna get scouted in these club soccer tournaments. And I was like, okay, I don't have that, so like what do I do? So for me, I think it was play every day with like boys, play by myself, watch videos. Like I would watch Ronaldinho, I would watch these players, and I was like, dang, he's like so good, because at the time women's soccer wasn't like
on YouTube.
You couldn't find it. So I think for me it was like focus on what I can control, and I wanted to kind of be like that example, because I know there's so many young Hispanic girls that go through the same thing in the US, and I was like, why not be that first one that breaks through and accomplish becoming a professional soccer player without club soccer, without like everything that came with it, and from a town of 4,500 people in Idaho. So I think that's like what made me kind of different, like from, I guess, US soccer, US soccer players.
Yeah, and I think that even like just like shows in, I love when we get to have conversations about how people's unique cultures is like seen on the pitch. And I think like kind of what you were talking about in the beginning, it's like kind of robotic. And I can really say this for myself, because I think Tobin had a similar like love of football, like watching soccer under the covers when she's supposed to be asleep. But like I grew up in like the American system in like the most pure form, like run one with your right, one with your left. Like
Yeah.
I always had a private coach. I always was like told by my parents, like, go out and play. And now if you watch me play, I'm like pretty efficient. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's how I describe myself. Like no one ever says silky. They say efficient. And I'm like really
Silky shot.
silky bench shot. Yeah. But I think that like kind of story of like just that freedom and that creativity that you were looking for, I love it because, you know, in this, it's this kind of the same outcome from a different start, because my parents used to always tell me, like, if you do what everybody else does, how are you going to be better than them?
Yeah.
And in your case, like, you didn't have access maybe to do club soccer, but it was actually maybe you were able to use it as an advantage. And that like impacts now how you get to like experience the sport and share that with other people who have different backgrounds.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think, like, I always think back and I'm like, what if I would have had access to soccer? Like, would I still love it the same? Like, what if my parents told me, hey, wake up and juggle the ball 100 times? Like, I don't think I would have maybe loved soccer the way that I did, because for my parents, we're like very Mexican traditional, and they literally, like, I live in front of a soccer field in Idaho, and they'd be like, you can't go out there because you're the only girl. So I feel like they even like didn't let me play. I was like, I just want to play soccer. And I feel like if I didn't have that like taken away from me, like, would I have loved it the same? Like, would I have fought for it? Would I have done everything I did to play? Like, I guess we might never know, but
How did you convince them to let you play?
I would sneak out. I would sneak out of my house. Yeah, which was hard. I'm like, it was so nice to have a soccer field in front of my house, but then at the same time, I'm like, shoot, like they can see me. Yeah. So I was like the only girl. Like I remember I would, like, they would work all day, but everybody would play at night, like the boys, during the evening, and I would hide my cleats. Like, I would see what they're doing, and then I would go through the back door and put my cleats out there and kind of see like what they were doing.
Stuff.
Yeah. And then like when they would least expect it, I would go out there and I would start playing. It would be like 5-10 minutes, and then I would just hear my mom yell my name, and I was like, all right, it's time to go home.
Amazing. It's so crazy. Like, do you think nowadays, like, obviously fast forward, like, you're a professional player, do you think nowadays you're part of a generational shift in your own country of celebrating women as athletes? Like, nowadays, like, if we fast forward and your parents are kind of like, you know, now you're young Maria, do you have the opportunity now for them to be like, go play? Like, do you think they've changed it a little bit because of you?
Absolutely.
In that way?
Yeah, I think like they're my biggest supporters now, and even in like high school, because that's really like the only soccer I had growing up. They would like see that I was good at it, and they would like start supporting it little by little. Like, I would still not be able to play with boys, but they would still be like, okay, like I guess they accepted it at first. Like, they were just like, we're not gonna stop her from playing soccer. Like, she's just not. We've tried so many times, and that's what she's. Yeah. So like, I think they kind of accepted it, and then now they're like my biggest supporters. Like, they'll watch every game on TV. Like, they're I like have a little niece now, and it's funny to see her like being able to move the ball around or like just kick the ball, because I'm like, when I was that age, they would have been like, no, like, do not like. Yeah. It was so different. So I think now they've changed their mind, like, because I mean, when they immigrated to this country, it was like, so we had the opportunity, their kids had their opportunity to go to school. And I think for them, it was like, what do you mean you're going to play soccer? Like, and especially for women, it was like, what are you going to do with this? Like, we immigrated to this country for you to go to school, and you're playing soccer. Like, women's soccer wasn't on TV. Like, they didn't see anything like a possibility of an outcome with it. But I think once, high school started and they saw that I was successful, and then I got a college paid for because of it, I think that's when they were like, oh, wow, like, it gave her something that we couldn't have given her. So I think now they're like so supportive and so for it. I think they still struggle, like when I go back home, because it's Idaho and winter and stuff. So now we'll play in like indoors, and they'll still be like, "Is there gonna be girls playing? Like, are you gonna be the only girl still?" And I'm like, "Come on, guys! Like, you've seen how successful this sport has made me, and like the decisions I made playing behind your back. Like, how are you guys still asking me?" I'm like, but it's funny. Like I appreciate them, and I understand them as well, because their mindset immigrating to the US was different, and so I think like I understand where they also came from. So yeah.
Do you think like, and I think that we can kind of inherently understand like what maybe they were worried about, but do you think you could try to articulate like what was their fear if you were the only girl?
Yeah, I think what people would tell them, because they would go to work and people would be like, "Hey, your daughter's the only girl playing soccer with all the boys." Like, they just thought that soccer was so masculine that a girl should not be doing it. And then people telling them all the time, like, "Hey, your daughter's the only one." Like, I think they were just afraid that it was a man's sport and their daughter was playing it. And that wasn't a possibility back then. Like, they were just so scared of me being like a girl playing a man's sport. So yeah,
and it's interesting too, because obviously there's like cultural differences between Mexico and the US, but you ended up in Idaho. So like it would have looked different for you if you ended up in LA, right? You would have found a lot of girls to play with, and you could still have, you know, your culture and like your different ideas for what's right and wrong. But I think it makes it a lot easier if you had been playing with all the girls, right?
Yes.
So how did you end up in Idaho?
I ask them this all the time because I was like, really? So they immigrated a few times when they were younger, both my parents. And my dad, I remember he said he came to LA his very first time. I think he was 16. And when he would come, it would be illegally the first couple times. So he said he was mowing lawns. He worked for somebody mowing lawns, and within the first week, he like broke a sprinkler, and they didn't pay him for the week. So he was like, "I can't live out in LA like doing that." So he had heard that there's a lot of field work in Idaho, and some of my uncles had already been there before, and so he decided to go to Idaho and work in the farms. And since then, he took my mom over a few years later, and that's what they did. They got their citizenship and everything. But yeah, they never moved out of Idaho, and it's like so crazy because they would send money to Mexico to build their house. In Mexico, they like have their house now, and they're always been like, at some point we're gonna go live in Mexico. But I'm like, you guys are American now. Like, you guys are from Idaho. You guys have lived in Idaho more than Mexico, so it's like you guys aren't leaving. Like,
what was that guys like for you? You know, you were born in the U.S. and you represent Mexico. Was there ever a time that you thought about representing the U.S. in football?
I think since I was little, since my dad would watch soccer on TV, it was always Mexico. Like, every weekend we would watch the Mexican League. Like, I think for me it was always like, I want to represent Mexico. And on the women's side, I had no idea how anything worked or like anything. I just saw Mexico national team, and that's who we rooted for, and that's who I wanted to play for growing up. So I don't think, I mean, now even looking back and understanding the system, I was like, I don't think I ever had a chance. But I was like, since I was a kid, I always wanted to represent Mexico. So.
What was that process like for you to get that opportunity to even play for Mexico? Because you didn't have the traditional path in terms of like club football, and then you went to college, you went to Idaho, and then you did your final year at Santa Clara. Is that correct? And so at what point did you like kind of get into that pipeline of the Mexican national team?
Yeah, so it's a funny story because I was at Idaho State. Like, it was the only school that recruited me because it's 20 minutes away from my house in Idaho. And we had a recruit that played for the U17s from Mexico in their World Cup, and we were recruiting her for Idaho State. She's a goalkeeper. She plays in the Mexican League now. So it's just like funny thinking about it. And I remember like when I hear that, I was like, wow, this is insane. Like, I get to meet somebody that plays for Mexico. Like, I was so excited. Like, it was the craziest thing ever. Like, there's still a picture on my Instagram. I'm like, I never take these things down because I just think it's funny. But I was like, just met the U17 goalkeeper from Mexico, like put a picture up. Like, I was so excited. And at that time, since it's winters in Idaho and you can't play outside, we would practice indoor. And she saw me and she's like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, how are you not playing for the national team? And I was like, well, how? Like,
How do I
please tell
do
me,
it?
how do I do that? And I'll gladly take whatever opportunity I can. And she's like, that's insane. Like, you could easily be playing for Mexico, because she knew that's what I wanted to do. And funny enough, 2 days later, she texts my coach, Idaho State. She says, there's tryouts in LA in 2 days. María should go. And I was like, oh, like, it was the opportunity. I was like, absolutely, I need to be there. And I remember telling my parents, and at first, because I mean, college, there's no money. Like, I had to get to LA, but I was like, I have to drive there because an airplane, like, ticket would be too much. And at first I told my parents, like, if they could help me out getting here, and they were like, no, like, I don't think, like, that's already a different level. And I was like, guys, like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like, I feel like I can do something if I go there. And they were just like, no. I was like, okay. I had a 99 Honda Civic, like, stick shift, and I was like, okay, I'm driving. Like, yeah, I was like, I'm gonna be there. Like, I don't care what you guys
stick
say.
shift.
Yeah. And it's like funny looking back now, because I'm like, you were insane. Like, how I was just like, I don't care. I'm gonna go. And thankfully, my sister took days off of work, and she took me in her car. So we drove 12 hours to LA. I tried out, and then a month later, I made the national team.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was pretty crazy. But I'm like, if I didn't take that opportunity, like, I probably wouldn't be where I am, because that was what I needed. Like, that was perfect timing. Like, everything was
So
perfect.
cool.
So
It's incredible.
yeah,
It's so incredible.
It was cool. It was, and then I played you guys. I made the U20 roster, and then that was 2015. So it was right before the World Cup, and I played you guys in LA, actually. Yeah, Galaxy Stadium. I can't remember what the stadium was called then, but I mean, I didn't get minutes, but I was on the bench.
Your first World Championship was 2015 World Cup?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So I tried out in January, February, and I was in the World Cup in June. So
wow, I love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a quick turnaround.
What was that like for your family to know that you were going to represent like your country in a World Cup? Like,
yeah, I mean, they were excited.
That you can relate to, right? Like World Cup, like soccer World Cup. You know, like
yeah, I mean, it was just such a quick turnaround. I remember they were like, wow, like, we literally told you not to go, and now you're playing for Mexico in a World Cup. And I think the way the community came together for me and everything, like, they were so happy. Like, they were so excited for me. And like, even watching Mexico on TV years before that, and they were like, now you get to wear the jersey, like, now you get to live your dreams. So yeah, they're like, it's literally because you never listen to us, so they think it's funny. But yeah, it's like insane, but it's so cool to be able to represent like their roots. Even if I was born and raised here in the US, it's really cool representing that part of me and my family.
So, Tobin, it is not time for Christmas carols, and it is not time for Christmas lights, but it is time for everybody's favorite segment, Community questions.
I feel like you said that like as if I do those things before the time.
No, those are your rules that I live by.
Thank you.
Because María was actually in Los Angeles and everybody already saw her Christmas concert last night.
Oh, wow.
I know. And I would have been there, except for it is against the rules of the house. Okay, you want to start? Here.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Anna from Croatia wants to know, when was the last time you had In-N-Out and what is your go-to order?
This is mean because I secretly...
It didn't say how often do you have In-N-Out.
Well,
I said,
secretly went to In-N-Out last week while you were out of town and didn't tell you about it.
That is mean. That is so mean.
I know. When you were in Boston.
Well, I know where I was.
Well, I think that was like 3 days ago.
Yeah, okay.
And I would say Tobin kind of keeps me on the straight and narrow. And so when she leaves town, I might just like drive to In-N-Out immediately.
Or like you drop me off at the airport and you go to In-N-Out.
Yeah.
Is that what you did?
No.
Oh.
It was worse. I went right before acupuncture. This is like a true story. I think that's
worse,
it. No one
going
needs
before or after acupuncture.
I think before it was like in my stomach, like clogging all my arteries as I was like trying to cleanse them.
Yeah. Okay.
Nobody needs to know what I order, so that was good. Okay. Bailey from Winnipeg wants to know, since you've been watching all of Kristen's goals on YouTube, which is your favorite?
Oh my gosh, that's so hard.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's so easy.
I was going to say that, and then I said hard because there were some really good ones. There's this magic Bergkamp touch of a goal, you know what I'm talking about, where like she somehow, I think I actually served a really bad cross to her. This is a national team game, which I think is so funny when people get like, oh, what a great assist. Like, I should not get an assist for this goal that you scored. Like, yes, like somehow the ball got to you through my bad cross, but like you did everything for the goal. And it was like you took this touch like behind your back and spun and then somehow like volleyed the ball in. And it was like otherworldly.
I know. And then after that game, I remember it well. It was a long time ago, but I remember it. And everyone was like, oh, did you mean to do that? And I said, I always mean to score.
Yeah, that's your line.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I love that
Which
line.
is a little vague.
Yeah, I feel like that's the Kristen Press line. And I feel like the Abby Wambach line is like, it's not how, it's how many.
I do think how matters, but that's fine, Abby.
Exactly.
Whatever, we'll talk about that.
You have
offline.
your line, and she has hers. But I feel like all goal scorers kind of have their lines. Another Anna. This seems weird.
2 Annas on one card?
With the same spelling.
Oh, wow. Maybe it was
who knew we had a membership only for Annas? Anna from Orcas Island, Washington, asks, if your personal mascot was a vegetable, what would it be and why?
An avocado.
How do people come up with this?
Is that a vegetable?
What?
Oh,
no.
It's a seed. I think that means it's a fruit.
You can be an avocado.
I'm an avocado.
Okay. Great.
Haley from Ohio asks, we've heard you're a bit of a scaredy cat when it comes to scary movies.
Me?
You. Has one ever made you scream?
I'm not much of a screamer, but I always do the like where you squint your eyes a little and you plug your ears. That's how I watch scary movies.
Well, do you want to confess what happened this week when we were watching Harry Potter and Dumbledore was getting attacked?
Did I scream?
No.
You got scared last night around something. I already knew what was going to happen in the movie, so I prepared myself.
And how did you prepare yourself?
And then you scared me because you got scared. What? By closing my eyes and
turning away while Dumbledore was getting attacked by a little gremlin.
No, and you said, it was Harry.
And you said, I don't like this part.
You know you're a scaredy cat when you get scared in Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's
to be fair,
point.
As the movies progress, they get scarier and scarier.
You did tell me that.
Yeah. Who likes scary things? Let's just talk about that. Those are the people that we should be concerned about in this world.
I like roller coasters.
But just like scary movies in general, I can't even believe that like people enjoy like those types of things.
Okay, I like
somebody's enjoying them because
suspense What about
I
suspense?
love suspense. Yeah.
And I get scared in
like
suspense.
thrillers.
Yeah, but I don't like
not horror.
No.
Like this world's enough for me.
I know exactly.
We don't have to make
we
up.
are living in a horror movie.
We don't have to make up things.
Thank you to everybody for your wonderful community questions. We are very grateful for all your support. Thank you for watching our show, subscribing, liking, commenting. We see you and we hear you. If you would like to get your question on an episode, please join our membership, which is an online space for changemakers and soccer fans where we come together and we watch sports and we talk about how we can make the world a better place. So you can join our membership, submit a question, and it might get on the show. Thank you very much.
On this show, we talk a lot about like what kind of motivates people, and like especially when you have like hurdles where people are like, you shouldn't do that or don't go play there. Like, was there like an inner voice inside of you? Like, what was it that made you go, like, what made you rebel, or that made you think like, that's what I'm supposed to be doing? You know, that's what I was meant to do. Like, what was happening inside of you, like, to kind of like propel you forward when everything was telling you don't go forward?
Yeah, I think honestly seeing like the people around me and even seeing my parents, like they work to this day, like in a potato factory, they work so many hours a day. And I was like either that or try something new that they didn't do, that nobody else in my little town has really done. And I was like, you have to come out of your comfort zone, like, because these are uncomfortable situations. Like,
Yeah.
I was so uncomfortable. Even going to the World Cup, I was like, this is my dream, but I'm so scared.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't have the same access as maybe the girls 20 miles away from me that were on club soccer. But I was like, I'm going to take what I have and I'm going to make the most out of it. And I'm going to get to where they did in a different way and show the people around me, show the world that you can accomplish those things in a different way, like at your own way. So I think
it's so cool because like you're self-motivated. And I think that's also something in the US that we're very motivated by, like what the expectations of others are on us. And it does affect everyone's relationship with the game and to their job to some degree. But what I'm hearing from you is like a deep self-motivation that probably came from like love, and also it seemed to come from a little bit of like bravery, or like a little bit of like mischievousness or rebellion, or
a little Mulan shit.
A little Mulan shit, like a little bit like because you said I can't, then I will.
Yeah.
Almost like that helped you overcome, was like the fact that people didn't think you could.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really, really inspiring. And, you know, if you haven't already realized it, it's so brave.
We're inspired.
We're so brave.
And not only did you do it, but like you smashed it. Like like you're considered, you know, when I think about the top, you know, most inspirational Mexican players for their national teams, for their country, for inspiring a whole generation, I think of you for what you've done here in the US. If we even talk about your club career here, I mean, 2023, you signed one of the biggest contracts to date that at that time in the NWSL as a Mexican player in an American league. And I think people don't really understand how impactful that is, because you have to think about it like the US women's national team, like this is our league and you signed the biggest contract in our league. And that to me is a signal of a change in this global game that we have, but also it's just such an example for so many young girls and boys in Mexico to know now what is possible. Like you're an example now for what you never had when you were making those decisions. Like what did that feel like when, you know, as you continue to progress in this way, like now you're, you know, super well known in Mexico, you represent San Diego, huge Mexican community. Like, what is that like now, being kind of known and having achieved so much?
Yeah, I think it's just important for like the community that I grew up in, or like the little girls that have similar stories to mine or similar upbringings, like to have that person that they can say like, she did it, I can do it too, or like that pave that way maybe for them to achieve things, because I know it's difficult with like parents or so many ways, opportunities sometimes that we have. So I think for me, that was the most important part of everything, that like it was a huge achievement. But I think to me, it was like we did that like especially for Mexico women's soccer, like we're just now growing in Mexico, like it's just now changing. So I think for me, that was the most important thing, kind of being that example. And like, it's scary. Like it was absolutely scary at the time. And like knowing like what kind of attention it was going to get or what kind of feedback it was going to get. It was like, it's scary because people agree, people disagree. And like, but I'm like, I have to be strong. I have to like fight hard. And like, yeah, it was definitely scary at like time. But yeah, I think the most important part was kind of being that example for others. And, you know, somebody else from Mexico, from the Mexican League, hopefully can come and break that record, like just even Latinas or whatever, honestly, that it can just keep going.
Exactly. Like we talk so much about how the financial liberation of women is the social liberation, and it's so true in our sport, that we have to earn money for us to be professional and respected. And it can be so uncomfortable for us as women to want money or to fight for it or to know other people are getting it.
Yeah.
And it's like a cultural shift where we're even able to have these conversations. And so I can only imagine how it would have been to be the highest earning like soccer player in America. And also the cultural shift that contract created in your country and to Mexicans everywhere, in seeing that. And I think it does move the needle in a lot of ways. And it just opens up a world of access and opportunity. And when women are able to earn income that's substantial playing sport, like it helps people change their lives. It helps, young girls go into sport in the first place. It helps parents say like, okay, go ahead and run out there. And like, even if those young people don't make it to where you make it, they have the opportunity to have skills of like, and the lessons of playing sport. And I think the funny part that I sort of have seen is like when you don't have professionalism, or when you're dreaming of being at a higher level, like you were dreaming of representing Mexico, I was dreaming of representing the US. And then you finally get there and you're like, I'm doing what I want. It's like, that's actually when it gets the hardest.
Yeah.
Because then you think you are safe, like you think you've did the work. And then, it's a whole other can of worms of scrutiny and expectation. And then like a lot of criticism. And also the fear of like losing it, and I think for the life of an athlete, the need to be going on an ascension, it's endless and there's no top of the mountain. But just curious, like when you did sign the contract, did you feel criticized? Because I know you said you felt like fearful, like maybe that you would be, but did you actually have that experience?
I think, I think it was just difficult, especially like, I don't know, I guess from other players, I never heard like any criticism. But I know like it was definitely a topic, or like, especially because I represent Mexico. I'm from Mexico, and like years ago there wasn't even Mexicans playing in the NWSL. Like it was the hardest thing ever. And if there was, they didn't have minutes. So I think that was like the most difficult part of like, taking that criticism, knowing that people are like, you don't deserve it, or like, but to me, it was just telling myself like, you know what, it's opening opportunities for everybody else. Now the player that's better than me can say, hey, like I deserve it too. Or, it's just, it was an opportunity, I think, for so many people that just sparked in an instant. And it's like, now I don't have to be the best contract, whatever. Now she can ask for something more. Like, it was just this thing that I'm like, it's going to help at the end of the day. It's going to help everybody. And like, I'll take the criticism, I'll take whatever, but it's an opportunity for women in general. So it's worth it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it is. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, we're here, but just watching women in our sport get paid more and more,
So
and watching more and more fans come, and ticket sales and jersey sales. And it's just a freaking beautiful thing. So what do you want to do with your career now? Like, I kind of have this vision of your life where you're always like, I'm in my house and I want to be on that field. Like, I'm here in Idaho and I want to be in LA, like where you're like seeing where you are and you're like, how do I get there? Now, you're playing for San Diego, you're playing for an amazing club that really does represent, the future of women's sports. And where is that next thing that you want to do or see or give?
yeah, I mean, it is hard because it's like you work so hard your whole career for these things, like to be sitting here, to be like living this life, and then it does become like, okay, what's next? And like so for me, I guess it's just now I can not relax, but like kind of enjoy it a little bit more. Hopefully win more championships. I mean, hopefully win a championship in the NWSL. but yeah, I guess kind of be that player that still breaks barriers. I think paves that way for Mexican or Latina soccer players. Yeah, I kind of just enjoy it a little bit more, ease a little bit off like
I love
everything. But
I think that maybe that's the hardest thing of all.
Yeah.
I always say, like, when people ask, like, oh, what's left? I always say, I have to figure out how to like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's left, the joy, because
Yeah.
it's like you can win a lot and you don't have that. So
Yeah.
I love that. I hope you can do it. And I also have this like belief that when you do take your foot off the gas a little bit, you start to go faster.
Yes.
Because,
agreed.
you have to let go of the thing you love a little.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the future for all of us if we play our cards right.
Yeah, and I think like looking at kind of like global football at large, we had on Mia Fischel was one of our guests, and she, chose not to originally go into the NWSL, and she went over to Liga MX. For those that don't know, that's the league in Mexico, and play there. You have also played there, as well as in Chicago for the Red Stars, Houston, and now in San Diego Wave. What do you think the biggest difference is between the two leagues, and how do you see like the growth in both like club football in Mexico, but also with the national team?
Yeah, I think it's opened so many opportunities for so many players now. Mia Fischel's story is like amazing as well, taking the path that not a lot of players take. But yeah, I think it's a league that's still growing. That has helped the national team so much. Like, this year was the first year we beat the US in I don't know how many years.
Wow.
So I think yeah. So it's definitely like you can see the growth we've had as a national team just from having those players constantly train every day, constantly play every weekend. Before we would head into tournaments, having like a month build up into the tournament. Yeah. So it's like now we actually have a professional league where players can train every day, be in that professional environment. So I think that has been really important. I think they're starting to invest in women's soccer more now. There was only like when the league first started in Mexico, it was like 4 teams invested in it, and then the rest were like getting beat 10-0, 9-0. Like it was just the difference between the investing teams and the non-investing was crazy, and it still is. It's still kind of there, but yeah, I think the growth that it's had is insane. Like the contracts that some of these teams offer are probably higher than some NWSL contracts. So it's like cool seeing the investment. Yeah.
We heard there's good opportunity.
Yeah. There's a lot of opportunity in Mexico. So it's like so great to hear that as well, because you're like they're investing, like
huge.
They're offering better contracts than NWSL or Europe, and it's like a league that's fairly new. So it's cool to see that. I think obviously the difference in the NWSL, we have teams that are not tied to a men's team, that are individually like women's teams in the NWSL. So I think that's like amazing to see, like even how the value that some of these teams have are like more than some men's team in Mexico. So it's like cool to see the growth that it's had in both NWSL and Liga MX. But yeah, it's cool to be a part of like that history in the making. For sure.
It's so young too, and it's so scary. I always say, like, the countries that have the culture of football and like kind of the infrastructure, like all they kind of have to do is like cough a little on it, and there can be a massive explosion in women's sports. And as we know, we know that women's sports changes the culture and the way that women are seen and girls are seen and what's possible for them in their countries. And like your story is a huge part of it. Who would you say is the next María Sanchez in Mexico? Is there a young player currently playing that nobody knows about that you're like, wow, there's a player that has some real potential?
I mean, I honestly look at these kids and I'm like, I don't think I was that good when I was their age. Like, they're insane now. Like, looking at the younger players, even
like
in the NWSL.
Don't let me in with your cockiness. She looks at the next gen, she's like, meh.
Yeah, they don't have it like
that
me.
was better than me.
They don't have it like me. Yeah, I don't know. There's so many. I recently went to camp with some of the younger ones. There's this little girl in America, Club America. Her name's, they call her Montse Saldivar.
Is that like a nickname for something, Montse, or is it like
her name's Montserrat, so Montse. But she's left-footed as well. It's so funny. She's like, tell me how do you hit it with your left foot? I'm like, you hit it with your like you're doing it. So yeah, it's cool to see like their youth and the opportunities that they have now. Like, she just capped with our national team and she's 18, so it's like
so cool.
It's awesome to see.
Monse,
look out for her.
And then right now is NWSL Playoffs. I say 'tis the season.
Bring it in.
Unfortunately, the two people sitting next to me are not in the NWSL Playoffs, which I think a lot of fans would have loved to have seen both of you, your silky shots, your silky left foot, be in the playoffs. But what's that like for you? Do you watch the NWSL Playoffs? Or are you kind of like, do you shut off? What's happening right now?
No, I definitely watched the games this morning. I love to see like the competition, like how I feel like everybody plays so different in these games, because you're like, I mean, it's
anything can happen.
Anything can happen. Yeah. So I mean, it's fun to watch. I wish I was there, but
do you have a prediction?
Cool. Oh man, I don't know. Honestly, I thought playing North Carolina, they're the hardest team to play.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I was hoping they made it further, because I really think that they're insanely good.
I say about North Carolina, they just don't have like a 10+ goal scorer. That's all they're missing. They have a great team.
Just that
they're insane.
little thing.
I mean, in this league, it seems like you can pretty snatch them from anywhere. But
I don't
with
know.
who's left, like, is there another team that you think could kind of go on and win it all?
Well, there's gotta be. Someone's gonna do it.
Well, somebody will do it, but we'll see if Maria makes an accurate prediction.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think. Oh man,
I know pressure's on.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel better, Tobin always predicts.
Do you want to know the matchups?
Really?
Because I think sometimes I forget things. So Kansas City is playing Orlando, which kind of we're like two of the top teams, and then Washington's playing Gotham.
I think Gotham can win it again. I think they're pretty solid. Like,
no, they definitely can.
Yeah, but I don't know. Orlando is also just insane. Like,
That could be the final, right?
Or Kansas, or yeah.
I don't know. What do you think is next for San Diego? Obviously, it's been like a tumultuous. I think when you signed, you obviously went from the Houston Dash to San Diego. When you signed, everything was A-okay in San Diego, and then it felt like, the whole house turned upside down. Casey Stoney, the coach that probably, called you up to bring you to San Diego, all of a sudden, she's not the coach anymore. I think now it's like a juggling act of who's going to be the coach, as well as, Alex Morgan retired, which I think that was a big shock. Obviously, she got pregnant. And what else happened in San Diego? And then, obviously, a team that won the Shield last year to not making the playoffs. How does this now sit with you? Because I think you went from a situation in Houston where you were like, I'm about to join one of the best teams in the league. What do you think is next for the club, going into this next season?
Yeah. I think the team has great players. I think there's so much talent there. So that part, it's
yeah,
it was crazy to be a part of, because you would look around and you're like, wow, I'm surrounded by insanely good players. So it's definitely tough for everybody to have the season we did. But I think something that is exciting, and there's new ownership, investing in our team now as well. It's exciting just to kind of see how everybody is reacting to it. I think we all had a terrible sensation of the season, but I think everybody's, from what I've heard and talked to, everybody's I can't wait for next year, because we believe we can turn everything around and make San Diego successful again.
Well, as your rival from Los Angeles, I will not be wishing you the best. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. Actually, I think, iron sharpens iron. And I think having the teams in LA and San Diego, and now the Bay, who was the one California team representing us, it's important. And I think there's a mutual respect and a hopefulness that all of our franchises that are relatively new in California can go on to lead both on and off the pitch. So thank you for joining us. You have an incredible story.
Incredible.
Thank
you.
It's an
honor to share space with you.
Want more of the recap show? Never miss an episode by subscribing on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.